Okay, well, we don't think that Dr. Pascal Lee was able to join us because he may still be in the Arctic. Um, I hope that everyone got a chance to see his study interview. I certainly did. It was fascinating to see the site that's up there, and he showed all the different buildings. And I think it's on tape, so if you didn't get to see it live, you can probably still watch it on the study website. So Dr. Lee worked with two different interns this summer, and the first one that's going to present is Finn Braun. And Finn is I believe, rising junior at Temple Grandin High School, and was one of the few people who had a lot of CAD experience, which is why I selected him to work with Dr. Lee, because one of the projects was to work on a conceptual design of a single person lunar ATV. So I think now we'll get to hear about that. So take it away, Finn.
Okay, so I'm currently at my high school right now, so there may be some background noise, but hopefully that should be like kept to a minimum. So am I sharing a slideshow, or is Ariana gonna share the slideshow?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay. I guess I'll try to do it on my computer then. Okay.
You are muted, Finn, but I see your slides.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Your slides still say loading.
Okay.
And if this doesn't work, I'm happy to share and you can just, oh, there they go.
Cool. So yeah, the project that I worked on with Pascal was designing a lunar ATV, or all-terrain vehicle. So yeah, I guess we'll get into it. So I'm going to talk about the project first, and then I'm going to talk about the challenges and then the design. So basically, the predecessor to what I've created kind of is the lunar roving vehicle, which went up in the Apollo missions. And they are a lot like older now, and we have better technology to create a better rover. I guess the differences between the lunar roving vehicle and what I've created is in this like next slide. So my creation is more of an ATV, so it's seating one astronaut instead of two, but there is a space for an extra astronaut in an emergency. The kind of goal is to have an additional have a few of these ATVs on the moon, so that you and your buddy astronaut can go out to a site, and if his ATV breaks down, he still has a way of like getting back. So also it can act as a robotic rover, which is really important when either the astronauts are busy or not on the moon. It can still serve a purpose. There needs to be space for equipment and instruments, and it should be faster, more agile, travel a longer distance, and be able to climb steeper slopes. And safety is really important, so protecting the astronaut in a crash is a pretty big deal. So here's some of the challenges. Tires are pretty difficult to design. So tires that we have on Earth are typically filled with air. That doesn't work on the moon because there's very little external pressure from the atmosphere. So there's no atmospheric pressure containing the pressure on the inside of the tire. So the tire would just explode. terrestrial airless tires, so airless tires for the Earth, are usually called like puncture-proof tires, and they don't tend to work either because they're usually made out of a rubber, and rubber at the extreme temperatures of the moon can actually get really brittle and like crack, kind of like glass almost. And steel and most common metals don't bend well, so it's difficult to make it out of metal. The lunar roving vehicle tires were made out of a very thin metal wire, but a better solution is to use a metal called nitinol. The Ni stands for nickel, the Ti stands for titanium, and the NOL stands for the Naval Ordnance Laboratory, where it was discovered. And it's basically an alloy that can deform up to 16 times more than steel without cracking or bending so far it won't bend back. So the next piece are spacesuits. I'm not designing the spacesuit, but I'm designing something to work with a spacesuit. So Apollo spacesuits weighed 220 pounds, which is really like heavy. That was Earth gravity. On the moon, that's closer to 50 pounds. So more manageable, but still pretty heavy. The Artemis spacesuits are going to be, they probably will be a little bit heavier. And that's a pretty big issue. So there has to be some way to make it a little lighter. So the heaviest parts of spacesuits are the batteries, the oxygen, and water. And you can't really make water or oxygen much lighter. So the solution is to use smaller backpacks with rechargeable elements, and potentially the ATV could house some it would be able to recharge the spacesuits as you're moving. So I guess I'll go into the design now. This is a sketch Pascal sent me showing roughly what a body for the ATV may look like. The body design is still like a work in progress, but I really focus to make the mechanical elements as good as they could be. So then that's most of this next slide. The picture on the left is a quick mock-up I had for a body to help kind of place it in space better. But on the right is the final like chassis and suspension design. So these elements attached to the wheels, those are the wheel hubs, and those actually house the motors, the electric motors that drive the wheels. Driving it with a motor at each wheel has a number of advantages, but the biggest ones are simplicity and redundancy. So it's very simple, so it's unlikely to fail. And if one of the motors does fail, there are 3 other motors to still make sure the ATV can move. The other elements are coilover suspension. Some newer like Earth vehicles nowadays use like air suspension. That also doesn't work on the moon, so coilover is a pretty good option. The center disc in the middle of the yellow parts, the center cylinder, that's the motor that's in charge of steering the wheels. You may be able to see that it can steer the front wheels and the back wheels. Again, that's for redundancy, and it also makes maneuvering easier, and it can also increase stability, which is important when your ground is so unstable. So those are the biggest elements. of the body, I have a roll cage to kind of protect the astronaut in case of a rollover, and it's steered with handlebars rather than like a steering wheel, because that provides more like fine control with a longer handlebar. And the other important piece is in a seat, the legs have to be together rather than straddling a seat like you have in conventional ATVs, because a spacesuit cannot do that. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Well, first let's give Finn a round of applause, either virtual or on video. So 92 versions, huh?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Of your design. What were some of the things that you changed along the way?
I mean, pretty much every part of the chassis has had at least like 2 different versions. So in this one, the yellow frame is split into 2 pieces, one at the front and one at the back. I went over a few revisions where they were combined, but I realized you can save weight by creating a body that's a structural element that can combine both the front and the back. The other issues came to things like the steering geometry, making the wheels steer when the suspension moves around, and when it goes over an obstacle. So I tried to eliminate that in the like automotive world. That's called bump steer, by the way. The coilovers were pretty much the suspension springs, the coilovers. They were the only part that only had like one design, and I thought it was okay. And that's pretty much an exact clone of what you can find on Cars on Earth.
We have one question in the chat from another N3 mentor. Dr. Sikowski asked, would your design be different if you were making an ATV for Mars?
Yeah, so it would be pretty substantially different. So the surface is roughly similar. So a lot of that's the same. I would have to pay more attention to the weight of the vehicle, because Mars gravity is roughly double the gravity you can find on the moon. So saving weight would be a bigger deal. Also, however, the vehicle recharges may be different and may play a bigger role than it does on the moon.
Is there like an axle that connects the 2 sets of wheels?
No. Each wheel is driven independently by a motor, so there's no need to connect the wheels with an axle.
Okay, I think I get it.
Thanks, Finn. This was awesome.
That was just fascinating. I had never thought about the fact that if you're wearing a spacesuit, you can't really sit on a motorcycle type thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem very comfortable.
There's a lot of things. So I tried to make it as close to a Earth ATV as I can, or as close to how it operates. But there's a lot of things you have to rethink when designing it for the moon. So.
Well, thanks so much. That was just great.